All Hallows Eve started as a way to protect mortals from supernatural beings, but now it's evolved into something different.
Over $100 on Halloween candy alone.
Inflation has pushed the cost of candy to record levels.
The cost of candy is up 13% over last year, the biggest yearly jump ever recorded.
Stores are more than willing to capitalize on those demands. Fun-sized candy bars started popping up in stores in August.
There's little sign of Halloween-flation ending,
with consumers shelling out $12.2 billion for the holiday.
Just comparing from buying stuff last year, still very expensive.
Invaluable pagan traditions have been turned into trunk or treats. What started as a way to honor the dead has become a day solely focused on acquiring and indulging in copious amounts of candy from food giants. But this wasn't accidental. From Christian domination to poisoned candy, here's the story of how big candy companies hijacked Halloween. Now, as you know, human beings love celebrating things. Whether we're celebrating you not dying for another year, or whether we're celebrating you completing your government-mandated 12 years of learning things you'll never use in the real world, we love to celebrate, and the ancient Celts were no different. They had this really cool festival called Samhain that celebrated the change of the season from light to dark, because that meant the end of the harvest season and the beginning of the darker time of the year in the Celtic calendar. And this festival was amazing. They had sweets, wore animal head or skin costumes, and they had massive bonfires. I don't know, it sounds pretty lit. Get it? Cause bonfires. See, to them, summer to winter wasn't just their cue for seasonal depression. It was when spirits of the past could more easily cross over into the mortal realm. And I don't know about you, but I wouldn't want an 18th century ghost showing up with a whip. So, November 1st, they protected themselves with the costumes while honoring their dead loved ones with gifts of foods and drinks. Now, as Christianity was spreading throughout Europe, Christian leaders tended to have a problem with pagan traditions. Pagans believed in multiple gods, worshipped nature and ancestors, and had some festivals where they did some sinful, spicy things. Also, Christianity's main goal was to convert everyone, and pagan festivals spread an idea that conflicted with their main beliefs. So no pagan festivals equals less competition. But instead of trying to outright eliminate them and be seen as the bad guy, they decided to Christianize it, which honestly, thank you to whoever had that idea. Because I remember the year pumpkin carving was removed from my school because parents thought it was too demonic or something, and I was 6 or 7 and I still remember that, so the pagans would have been a little upset, is my point. So to Christianize it, November 1st became All Saints' Day to honor Christian martyrs, and November 2nd became All Souls' Day to honor past Christians. The evening before All Saints' Day became known as All Hallows' Eve, which morphed into the name we all know and love, Halloween. So how did it go from a beautiful holiday honoring deceased loved ones to a holiday where kids just go around being glorified beggars? Well, that also started with the pagans. Kinda. The day before Samhain, their festival, people would put on costumes, go door to door, and sing songs to the deceased, and they would be paid in cake. And the Christians continued that tradition in a sense. Poor people went door to door on All Souls' Day for something called souling, but basically some random person would come to your door, let's call him Tom, and they would ask to pray for your deceased grandma. Over time, kids started doing it as well, and they would ask for food, money, or ale, and I'm assuming it was a lot harder to say no to some scraggly looking peasant child. At the same time, in Scotland and Ireland, kids were doing something similar, but in costume. And instead of praying, they would put on a show. They'd sing or recite poetry or something cool like that, but again, while in costume. See, I'd probably prefer this to the other one only because I can pray for Meemaw myself, but there weren't any podcasts or YouTube videos back then, so the entertainment would be nice. Except for the fact that kids look like this. Yeah, so I'd love to bring that back. Let's make Halloween truly scary again. They got cookies, popcorn balls, carbo apples, which sound so delicious compared to Smarties. And they weren't playing with that trick part. They were genuinely dangerous, and people were terrified of kids vandalizing their house. In 1928, the Michigan Bay wrote, quote, "The fatal ultimatum, trick or treats, uttered in a merciless tone by some small child who clutched in one grubby fist a small chunk of soap capable of eliminating the transparency from any number of windows. But other than the, expensive property damage, Halloween was actually pretty fun. It was a night of celebration and partying for teens, children, and adults all alike. Oddly, they used apples a lot. One way was obviously apple bobbing, which was and still is pretty popular. In another apple tradition, young women would peel apples and then throw the apple peels back and hope it formed the initial of their future husband. Americans would also occasionally get together for nut crack night, which sounds like a pain for all men involved. Don't worry, it's not that type. People just came together to eat freshly harvested hazelnuts and chestnuts. In some cases, a young man would assign names to each nut and then would set them on fire, and whichever one burned the brightest would signify his future sweetheart. Another nut tradition was a couple burning 2 nuts and then seeing if they jumped apart or stayed together. Can you imagine being broken up with because of nuts? Sorry, babe, I meant till death or nuts do us apart. Fortunately for petrified adults, World War II put an end to trick-or-treating because of sugar rations, and when it came back, it's exploded. The post-war baby boom left the children excited about candy year after year, and candy companies saw an opportunity. See, before Halloween came back, Christmas and Easter were the prime time for candy companies. Halloween was a time for nuts and fruits and treats like that, not necessarily candy. Even considering turning Halloween into something as big as Christmas or Easter would have been doing the same thing with St. Patrick's Day. It just didn't sound very feasible, but they didn't stay out of it completely. By the 1950s, candy was making a name for itself as an acceptable treat. You'd still see the popcorn balls and caramel apples, but candy was an acceptable treat because it was easy and affordable. It was a quick trip to the grocery store instead of slaving away for an hour making treats. As you can see today though, pre-packaged candy is the only acceptable treat during Halloween. And that didn't just randomly happen. It began from a brutal and truly devastating event. On October 31st, 1974, 5 children received pixie sticks from a mysterious source. One of those children was an excited little 8-year-old boy named Timothy. Less than an hour after his incredible nights of fun and trick-or-treating, Timothy collapsed from unbearable stomach pain. He was rushed to the hospital, but he unfortunately passed before he even got there. An autopsy later revealed that this poor boy had consumed enough cyanide to kill 2 or 3 grown men, and the community freaked out. The other 4 pixie sticks were quickly retrieved by police, and a manhunt started to find what was dubbed the Candyman. And this tragedy marked a monumental shift in the American public's mindset. Rumors spread of drugged candy and treats with needles, and you could probably have said there was kryptonite in these treats and they would have believed you. So understandably, from that point on, the only acceptable treats was pre-packaged manufactured candy. And candy companies really leaned into this. They didn't create the mass paranoia, but they offered safe manufactured treats. They heavily marketed fun-sized candy bars that were safe from any tampering. Anyone still making homemade treats was probably a psycho trying to harm kids. And the sad thing is though, that was never the case. The Candyman that hurt poor Timothy was his own father. Apparently, this monster took out multiple life insurance policies on his own kids and fed his 8-year-old son cyanide to try and cash him out. But it didn't matter. The damage to homemade treats had been done. And although at this point candy was dominating Halloween, candy companies took extra steps to make sure it stayed that way. They heavily marketed their delicious product to millions of kids around the US. TVs got really big by the 50s, so by this point they were pretty well established, and advertisers knew that.
The great taste of pure milk chocolate and delicious peanut butter.
Some examples of these genius ads are Reese's ads where Frankenstein, a beloved kid's character, has a sweet tooth.
So the world would have to wait for the 2 great tastes that taste great together in Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
Another one, which some of y'all might remember, is Hershey's feature in a 1983 film that went on to surpass Star Wars as the highest grossing film of all time, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. E.T. drops Reese's Pieces on Elliot's comforter as a sign of friendship. Elliot then uses the candy as a trail to lure E.T. into his bedroom. Considering this movie was the highest grossing film in the world for 11 years, I'd say Hershey influenced quite a bit of kids with that. For the newer generation, think of it kind of like what happened with Eggos when Stranger Things came out. Like, everyone and their mom wanted Eggos, including me. Now, in 2024, Americans are estimated to spend $3.5 billion on candy alone this year. Gone are the days of throwing apple peels or burning nuts to find your soulmate, which I think everyone would want to bring back because it sounds a lot more fun than the humiliation and self-esteem destruction that people get from dating apps. So why does it matter? Kids want to eat a bunch of candy for one day a year. So what? And honestly, it's really not that serious. Like, I still am going to talk about the impacts because I wanted to know, but yeah, it's not that serious. That much spending obviously impacts the economy by drawing in billions of dollars in spending. Now, economists are split between whether that spending is good or bad, but I'm not an economist, so we're not gonna talk about all that. My biggest thing is the fact that we have lost so many cool traditions. Not apple bobbing though, that's not dead yet, but it needs to be. Like, why are we sticking our faces in spit-filled water to fish out apples with our mouths? That is disgusting. But I feel like I never got to do any cool things, like lighting nuts on fire, or opening the door to like singing kids. Even trick-or-treating is being phased out by trunk or treat, which, if you don't know what that is, basically a bunch of people bring their cars to like a school or church parking lot and park them with the trunk open, and they put the candy in there so parents don't have to like walk around different neighborhoods. They just take their kids to the parking lot and go from car to car to get candy. It's not a bad tradition, and if I were a parent, I would much rather do that than like take them to each neighborhood after a long shift on a Thursday. But I don't know, there was just something really special about walking up to a creepy looking house and being terrorized by a grown man in a Michael Myers costume. Good times. Anyway, my point is, I just hope we get to keep the community-based part of Halloween instead of it just becoming a day to like get candy out of a trunk of a car, you know? That last bit was really just my perception and me rambling, so if you see it any differently, please let me know. Does the shift from old to new traditions make it more enjoyable, or is there still that nostalgia and that craving for what once was? I'm honestly really interested in the impacts of said shift, and if you are too, do not miss my next video. It'll be like this crazy deep dive into basically how Halloween is the perfect holiday for consumer manipulation. I'll dive into the fear appeal, scarcity principle, social pressure, and all the manipulative psychology tactics that companies use on us. It's a really fascinating topic that you will not want to miss. Either way, I'd love to know what you think, and I read every single comment, so comment away, people. Come back again to watch me yap in like 2 weeks, and until then, I will miss you, and like and subscribe to help me out. Bye.